we are being mismarketed to, and we are being tricked by labels. And there is no definition of natural per the FDA. So anyone can put natural on a label, and there's no recourse other than a consumer suing that company. So the FDA doesn't have any opinions if you put natural toothpaste on the label and it's not actually natural.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Birth Lounge podcast. If you've been following me online, then you know that I have spent the last several years battling, and I say that very intentionally, trying to find a good, clean deodorant. Several years ago, I learned about the harmful chemicals that were put in a lot of our skincare products, and one of the worst offenders is actually our deodorant. Well, since your deodorant goes on every single day, and for some people, multiple times a day, and for some people, directly after you shower, and it's put on right in your underarms, which is such a center point to your lymphatic system, I knew that that's where I wanted to start when I started my journey of getting rid of harmful products in my life and my home and replacing them with cleaner products. Now, little naive me set out and thought, well, I'll just go buy a clean deodorant. And boy, was I shocked when I walked down the aisle and couldn't find a clean deodorant. There didn't seem to be a single product that met all of the things on my checklist. I was looking for truly clean ingredients, not a whitewashed label. I was truly looking for a product that didn't have fragrance or parfum in it. I am really adamant that fragrances do not come into my home in any form. And so if I was going to go with a clean deodorant, I was really strict that it was truly clean. Over the years, I have tried so many brands. Matter of fact, it's kind of become this joke in all of my friend groups because when they find a quote unquote clean ingredient deodorant, they will send it to me and say, have you tried this or did it not pass the HeHe test? And a lot of them really don't. For so long, I struggled with irritation in my underarms. I mean, at one point, you guys, the skin of my underarms was literally peeling off, and I had these blisters underneath my skin, basically, and they were so painful. I mean, there have been so many events that I would have to be smiling and bearing through the pain because my underarms were on fire. It was absolutely horrible. There were several times where I had to sit with ice packs or warm washcloths underneath my arms just to find comfort and relief from what these clean deodorants, so-called clean deodorants, had done to my skin. I know it may sound a little dramatic, but I've cried a number of tears over this because it is something that's really important to me to put clean ingredient products on my body, yet the very one that I wanted so desperately to find, I couldn't find anything that was healthy for my body. It either didn't work and left me stinky, or it didn't work because it caused skin irritation, or it simply just wasn't a clean ingredient deodorant. Now, I did this for so long that I finally gave in and I bought a traditional deodorant. Yeah, I did. I went to CVS, I bought Secret, I cried over it, and I started to use it because I didn't know what else to do. It was actually horrible. It caused me so much mental and emotional anguish because I just wanted to have a clean deodorant and I couldn't find one, and I felt so frustrated. And while I am certainly the personality that is like, well, if I can't find it, then I'll just make it myself. First of all, I know nothing about making skincare products. And second of all, I'm already building something. I did not have the time or the wherewithal to take on making a skincare product. You know, I even tried a salt rock underneath my arms. I even once tried rubbing lemon on my underarms. I mean, when I say I did it all, I literally tried everything to find a clean alternative to deodorant, and nothing worked. So when I learned about Zebra, I was honestly skeptical. I was like, not another one of these clean deodorant brands. I'm probably going to invest all this money into a tube of deodorant and it's just going to leave me with irritated skin or stinky armpits or more tears because it didn't live up to my expectations. But on the contrary, boy, was I so happy. You guys, I really cannot even tell you how much Zebra deodorant changed my life, and I'm so lucky to be being joined by their CEO today. Jenn Thatcher left a successful career as an international artist to found Zebra. She believes that her children were victims of dirty products and a system that is designed to trick consumer, and her son Jack's diagnosis of a brain tumor made her even more vigilant at researching every single ingredient in every single product that came into her home. She quickly realized that these products were actually not always as natural as they say they were. And she realized that their marketing often left things out or they just were blatantly misleading. So in a true mom fashion, she decided that if she couldn't find it herself, she would just make it. She set out to make something truly safe and high performance that she was going to feel comfortable putting on herself and her children. And that's exactly how Zebra was born. And I gotta be honest, I absolutely love the name Zebra because it is so indicative of their black and white ingredients. They are a non-toxic, freedom-loving brand who answers to no one and creates a product that is transparent that you can truly trust. The quest to find clean ingredients and wholesome products in a nation that has subpar standards for our people has been so hard. It's really been a real trial of love for me. If it didn't matter so much to me, I would have given up years ago. But you know me, I'm not giving up and I will not be beat. So I'm so excited that I finally came across Zebra and I finally found a brand and a product that not only do I love and it works, but I totally trust this company. In today's episode, you're going to hear Jenn and I talk about the harmful ingredients that are found in a lot of our wellness products. How do these things impact our long-term health, our hormone health, our fertility? What about antiperspirants? Are they really as dangerous as you have been led to believe? And what about fragrance? Well, if you're anything like me, you really understand that fragrance truly is one of the most harmful things that you can let into your home. But you also know that it's incredibly hard to find products that don't contain fragrance. Jenn's going to talk to us about how long these chemicals are staying in our body, how to read a personal care product label, and what we need to know about third-party certifications and labs. And if you've ever used a natural deodorant and you thought, holy cow, this is not working, work, I am the smelliest cat on the street. Jenn is going to tell you exactly why that happened and what you can do about it. Of course, I want to help you have a healthy and happy birth, one that you feel informed and confident about. But y'all, that extends beyond the birth room. I want you living a happy, healthy, wholesome life from start to finish, feeling informed and confident about every single thing, and that includes your wellness products. So, buckle up, and without further ado, Jenn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. So glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I rant and rave about your deodorant all the time online, and it's because I genuinely have spent literally years trying to find a deodorant that works for me. And I actually don't consider myself having particularly sensitive skin, but boy, have myself and my audience just been through the ringer when it comes to finding a clean deodorant. I feel like, and I said this before we got started recording, but I feel like there are a lot of companies who are doing good work and they're trying really hard, but they're missing the mark. And the reason I say that is because I have tried, no lie, no less than probably 30 deodorants out there. And they all start off well when my underarms are healed. And then somewhere along the way, I get this horrible rash. And at first, I thought it was razor burn, and then I thought it was heat rash. And then for a period of time, I thought, well, this must be my fault. I must have like maybe yeast or candida under my arms. And then I figured out, no, I actually think it's these clean deodorants, and I think that they are upsetting my underarm skin. And so when I came across Zebra, I was skeptical because I was like, oh my God, not another deodorant for me to try. And, I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, all right, I'm going to try another one because I knew if I kept trying, I would find something. And honestly, Zebra has changed my life. So that's why I had my team reach out to you. I was like, you guys, we got to have their team on the show because it genuinely changed my life. And now I don't have to worry about the other dropping. I don't have to worry about like when is the rash gonna come. I don't have to worry about my next big event and like will my underarms be burning and inflamed. And so I think where I would like to start before we dive into all the icky ingredients that a lot of us are kind of aware of is how did this become your life? Where did you come from and what was your path to being the clean deodorant lady?
It was a non-traditional path. I don't have a background in cosmetics or personal care or anything like that. I was actually an artist. I had built a worldwide art brand. I was super happy with what I was doing. I have three children, and they started all experiencing some weird health issues in succession. So my youngest daughter experienced ovarian torsion at 4 years old. So she had a cyst that was larger than her ovary. And we didn't know what was happening. She was 4, so she was just saying she had stomach pain, and we kept going to the ER and the doctors, and they just kept sending us home because she didn't have appendicitis. But long story short, we found out on our last ER trip that she had this cyst, and they rushed her into emergency surgery. We had no idea what was happening. And then when the pathology report came back, the doctor actually said, I'm really sorry we didn't catch this sooner. We just don't see this in 4-year-olds. And so she said, we actually searched the medical journals, and, we've talked to a bunch of colleagues, and the closest documented case we can find of this happening, of an ovarian cyst this size and ovarian torsion, is 13. And that makes sense because the hormones, are usually working at 13, but like not at 4. And so that just didn't really sit well with me. Like, okay, she's the only 4-year-old that this has maybe ever happened to. And I just started researching, why did this happen to her? If it's not genetic, obviously it's something environmental. And that led me down this rabbit hole, which I'm not saying it caused this, but I just thought this was really strange. The juice, which was an organic juice that she'd been drinking for every day for multiple years, was currently being sued for having a hormone disruptor in the juice. And so I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I've been paying, extra money for this organic juice and it's actually not as pure. And I've been giving this to my daughter every day. And so I just kind of thought, well, that could be a link, hormone disruptor plus ovarian cyst. And then 6 months later, my son, who was 15 at the time, started experiencing really strange migraines. And they were very complex, like he would lose partial vision or he would lose feeling in his mouth. And so we took him to the neurologist and their answer was just migraines. Here's some medication. And I never got the medication filled because we don't do big pharma in our family. And I just kept saying to the doctors, but why does he have these migraines? Is it his diet? Is it his sleep? Is it, something else? And so I just wanted an answer as to why, and I never got that. But then he started texting me one day from school, just over and over, mom, 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 mom. And so he had an event at school where he lost his entire vision. He lost motor function in his arms, and he was like slurring his speech. So it actually was mimicking a stroke. And so I quickly picked him up at school and I just said, buddy, we are just going to go to the ER. I know this is supposedly migraines, but we've got to get this checked out. And after 13 hours, the doctors came back and said he had a mass on his brain. And it was just one of those moments where, like, it was just surreal. And I had to decide what I was going to say to my son in this moment. And I said, don't worry, buddy. Like, we don't know what this is, but we know that God will use it. He'll use it for the good. And it's going to be okay. And so we just started flying around to other specialists, other neurosurgeons to try to figure out what this brain tumor was. And no one could answer it. The location was strange. They couldn't tell us if it was cancer or not cancer. They couldn't tell us why he was having these symptoms. Some people said operate. Some people said don't operate. He'll end up being a vegetable. Like, it was just so scary. And ultimately, we decided to do the brain surgery. And the same story after the brain surgery, the brain surgeon came to his room and said, this is so rare. This is, from my estimations, one of 26 type brain tumors in this location. And we just didn't know what it is, but now the symptoms make sense to why, he was having those symptoms with this brain tumor. So it was just a strange series of events that, made me just really question everything I was doing as a mother, which was always trying to prioritize organic foods, organic, safe cleaning chemicals, safe products in my home. We've always done fluoride-free toothpaste. We've always, done the natural deodorant. I actually started doing natural deodorant myself in high school. I feel like I've always been just ahead of the trend on that. And so my friends, they were watching this all unfold, kept saying, like, how did this happen to you? Like, how did it happen to you of all people who wraps their kids' sandwiches in wax paper versus putting them in a plastic Ziploc bag? So it was just really weird. So when my son got home from the brain surgery, I took a look at everything we were using and eating and all the products and wanted to make sure that everything I thought was good was actually good. And so I went product by product, ingredient by ingredient. Instead of just looking at the labels, I searched each and every ingredient in the products we were using and the things we were eating. And what upset me the most was the toothpaste and the deodorant, because I was spending a lot of money for those natural products and I felt like they weren't as pure and good as I thought they were. And so I'm not saying our toothpaste and deodorant caused my son's brain tumor. I'm just saying, like, through this journey, I was kind of awoken to the fact that we are being mismarketed to, and we are being tricked by labels. And there is no definition of natural per the FDA. So anyone can put natural on a label, and there's no recourse other than a consumer suing that company. So the FDA doesn't have any opinions if you put natural toothpaste on the label and it's not actually natural. So that is where Zebra comes in. at the moment I was searching for these better products for my son and for my family, I wasn't finding anything that was meeting my threshold, my standards for keeping my family healthy. And I just said, like, okay, if it doesn't exist, if a company that isn't super transparent and just super focused on sourcing the very best and healthiest ingredients doesn't exist, I'm going to create it. And so I didn't know what it was going to be called at that moment. But God honestly gave me the name Zebra, and it's ingredients that are black and white. And so it was perfect because it's truly about being black and white here, being transparent. And not only are we black and white with our ingredients, we believe in the black and white of the Bible and the Constitution. So I decided to weave my brand values into the brand because I think there's a lot of people who are looking for brands to support that support the things that they believe in. And that has been hard to find, especially in the, cosmetic and personal care world. There's a lot of brands that stand for things that are the opposite of what a lot of consumers want to support. So that's what we did. We started Zebra with the idea that there shouldn't be anything tricky or hidden, and that if you source ingredients as closely connected to the earth and you use God's design as your blueprint and you're truly black and white like a zebra, it's going to be a better experience for the customer and, help keep them healthier.
I love that story so much. That's such a mom thing to be like, all right, well, it doesn't exist, so I'm gonna make it. And I'm like, hell yeah, I love that so much. I gotta say, I don't put too much thought into business names. I am a business owner. I kind of understand how people come up with business names, but when I learned the meaning behind zebra, I fell even more in love with your company. And this is after I started using your deodorant. I was like, oh my God, I already love this company. I love what kind of they stand for, and I love the ingredients, and I love how pure they are. And then I found out, oh, black and white. And it just, I don't know, it just made me feel, I think, safe with you. It made me
That's the
feel,
goal.
yeah, it made me feel like I can trust what you are putting in your products, and I can trust that I'm putting that on my body, and now I'm putting it on my pregnant body.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is for us to create a space where people do feel safe because I have been the mother that felt like a punch in the stomach. Oh my gosh, I've been giving my family something that now I don't think is safe. And so we just wanted to create a space, not in our just in our store, but our community. We wanted to create a community of people who are like-minded, who feel the same way, who've had that moment or moments or wake up story where they're like, oh my gosh, actually, the products on the shelf, they're not safe, or the government doesn't really care about what I'm putting in my body. And I thought that they were overseeing things and, making sure that things were healthy for me, but they're not. But you know what? Zebra is because it's founded by a pissed off mother. And
I laugh because I can identify with that so much. You know, I work closely in the hospital system, and I feel like the hospital system is just a mini government, and people think that the hospital has your best interests at heart, and they think that they walk into the hospital to have their babies, and it means that you're safe. And I don't know how to say this any other way except it means the exact opposite. It means that they're going to try and control you. The whole design of the hospital is to be for profit. It's not made for women. It's not made for women to be autonomous or be respected or make their own decisions. It's for women to come in, sit down, shut up, do what we say, have your baby, and then pay us. And I have a lot of animosity towards that ideation, and I definitely hold that same animosity towards our government because I do think that a lot of people think, well, if it was so bad, the FDA wouldn't let it happen, or the CDC would be warning us. And it's like, actually, those are two of the most corrupt organizations in our government. And if you actually follow the dollar when it comes to those organizations, you'd be very blown away at how much they actually don't oversee, or they do let slide under the radar, or they know that it's happening and they do absolutely nothing about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to hear more about your sourcing. You had talked about, you guys source from good places. A, what does that mean? And B, what is kind of general sourcing if it's not from good places?
Yeah, that has been wild.
Okay.
So again, I came into this just very naive, I guess.
Okay.
I wanted to create the perfect toothpaste. I wanted to create the perfect deodorant. I wanted, the most pure ingredients. And so when I would have calls with the manufacturers, the third-party manufacturers who actually are doing the mixing and the filling of my product, the first question they would ask me would be, what do you want your unit cost to be? And I would say, what? Like, how am I supposed to know the unit cost? We haven't sourced the ingredients yet. And so it's every other company is doing it backwards. They go in with a profit in mind. And so they have their profit margin that they want to make, and then they back into the ingredients. So they're, figuring out how much money they can make, and then the ingredients come second. I was doing it the opposite. And so I think people were just really taken aback by my approach. And also, I think a lot of them underestimated me and kind of thought, look at this dummy. Like she has no idea what she wants her unit cost to be. And it's like, no, because that's not my main concern. My main concern is sourcing the most pure and healthy ingredients. And once those are sourced, you can cost it out and we'll have a discussion about the unit cost. So it was just like a completely backwards interaction that I had with them. And so it actually got me fired from my first deodorant manufacturer because I was being, I guess, so difficult with the sourcing. And so we are the only toothpaste company in America who has vowed not to source ingredients from China. And that was just a personal decision because of how many times I've seen Chinese ingredients be adulterated and compromised. And, that country is known for lackadaisical safety standards and also trying to maximize their profit margin on an ingredient basis. So you could order, let's say, carrot powder for a supplement, and you might get some orange powder, which is 90% carrot powder, but maybe they're throwing in, 10% of something else. And so that is just a huge deal for safety and for purity. And that is very common in all ingredients that are sourced from China. So we just said, we're not going to deal with that. And so kind of how it works is, you have the third party manufacturer, they're sourcing ingredients usually from a wholesaler. That wholesaler is sourcing the ingredients from another country. And so this deodorant manufacturer that I was working with kept saying, well, yeah, these are US ingredients. And I was like, well, let me see. Let me see the paper trail that these are actually from the United States of America. And so what was happening was yes, they're getting ingredients from the US, but they were actually still from China. And so I was requiring that they just source in a completely different way. And one of the things they really did not appreciate was I wanted them to work directly with a farm in France for the essential oils. And this little farmer did not, have easy access to email, and you had to like call him on his cell phone, but like you couldn't call him during our regular business hours because they're in France. And so I was like, okay, like this is who we're getting the oils from. So y'all figure it out. Long story short, they actually fired me. They said I was too whimsical and they did not appreciate my tone when I, was kind of having an exchange with them about the seriousness of our sourcing. So it's just a completely different deal. Most companies are coming at it from a profit perspective, and we're coming at it from a getting as close to the source as possible. We actually pay probably 3 times more for our ingredients than most companies. We've had a few people complain about the price of Zebra, which actually is underpriced at this moment. Our COO keeps telling me I have to raise the price of the toothpaste because of how high our ingredient cost is, but fighting back on that, trying to keep it as low as possible. But it's like, okay, this toothpaste that's $2 less is actually using ingredients that are really not very quality, and they're probably costing about 3 times less. And then we're using something that's way better. We also use a sugarcane bio-based plastic tube versus a petroleum tube. Also, that costs about twice as much. But it's just like everything that we can level up and, make healthier, we do it. And sometimes we're not even talking about it. So it's funny, this morning I had a customer asking me about the essential oils, and I kind of told her some of the stuff I just told you, and she's like, you really need to talk about that more. And I was like, I mean, for me, it's just like second nature. Like, I'm just looking to provide the best quality for my customers, but because it is so different than how everyone else is doing it, she was like, you really need to make some content around that. I was like, okay, I'll talk to the marketing team, and they will definitely make sure the message is out there.
How many companies do you think are sourcing their ingredients from China?
I think probably 99%. Especially the big companies. And Zebra started small, but we are growing. And I think, they're the cheapest. And when it's all about profit, that's just what you do. But Zebra was never made for profit. We exist because I wanted to create something better for my family. And I thought if my family, deserves it, then so does everyone else.
Oh my gosh, you sound so much like me. I'm always having discussions, I would say even like little borderline riffs with my accountant who is like, HeHe, you have to raise your prices. Like, HeHe, we have to discuss your profit margins. And I'm like, listen, I don't want to because when we start pricing out people from being able to access our support, then we basically are giving the hospital control again, right? We're taking that control out of the hands of women.
Absolutely. No, it's a hard line because, we want to provide a superior product, and it is so much more costly. And I think the general consumer, because these products that are on Amazon are generally sourcing these Chinese ingredients, aren't understanding that they are getting such a lower quality product for still a lot of money. And so when there is a truly higher quality product, they're not understanding how much that actually costs.
So let's dive into the price a little bit because it's probably the biggest pushback I get. And I feel very lucky and privileged to be able to afford organic food and clean products as far as skincare goes. And I understand that's not a privilege that everyone has access to. But, when I think about it, and listeners, bear with me here. I obviously have not practiced any of this, so I don't know that this is going to be the most polished way to say this, but I'll share what's on my heart. When I think about paying for clean ingredient skincare, I always think about that if I'm willing to invest a little bit up front now to avoid carcinogens and hormone disruptors and skin irritants and gut health disruptors, how much money am I saving down the road from having to truly turn to big pharma that I don't want, having to go through cancer treatments that I don't want, having to see doctors either inside the healthcare system or divesting outside the healthcare system to fix my hormone imbalances or my gut health or my skin conditions that have developed. And I know that may feel a little fear-based and it definitely may come across as fear-based. That's obviously not my goal ever with you guys, but that's just kind of how I justify it in my brain. What do you say to people who are sitting here thinking like, all right, that's great, Jen and HeHe, but like I can't pay $24 for deodorant. How do you help them understand like this is more than just deodorant. It's truly an investment in your health, which is how I view it.
Yeah, well, I have several things to say about that.
Hit me.
So, I when my youngest was a baby, There was a time where we lived in Section 8 housing, and I definitely would have been one of the ones that couldn't afford the $21 deodorant. That being said, I still, tried to buy the cleanest possible products that I could. I would say you can make your own deodorant. You can make your own toothpaste. It doesn't have to be Zebra. Zebra doesn't exist just to sell people toothpaste. Zebra exists to offer products, clean products to people, but people's health is so important to us. Like, I don't care if they buy our products or not. I just want them to know the truth about what is happening in the food system, what is happening in their personal care products. So I totally understand that, but also, if zebra products or organic foods or whatever is important to you, there are definitely ways to prioritize that. And so, it might mean cutting back on a daily coffee, or maybe it's doing something different, but we can definitely prioritize things that are important to us. We live in an immediate gratification Amazon Prime society. And so a lot of people don't want to look at root cause. They want to look at what can get me what I want right now. And so I think that's one of the reasons why like antiperspirant and terrible deodorant is so popular, because people don't want to smell bad. And so they're not thinking about the long-term effects of their body. And so, Zebra looks at it completely differently. Like, okay, we don't want to work against the body's biology. We want to support the lymphatic system. So sometimes when people switch to Zebra, they actually have a pretty heavy detox period, because Zebra's ingredients, which are coconut oil and castor oil, two of them, they work in conjunction to pull and break up the toxins. But not everybody wants to go through that experience. And me personally, I would not think that's a fun experience. But on the other hand, I would think, okay, but like if that's what's in my body, I want it out. Those two things I think are really important, just knowing that health is a long-term play. And if we think about our body like a vehicle, and if you put water or sugar in the gas tank, like you're going to ruin the life of your engine. And we don't necessarily take care of our bodies in such a way that promotes them to last a long time. But we need to think about everything we are putting into our body actually becomes our body. So like we're not like a car in the way that oil or that gasoline that we're putting in a car, it goes away. Like we're ingesting food, we're ingesting products. Like it's actually becoming a part of our skin, a part of our blood, a part of our organs. And so like what are you putting in? Because ultimately like that is going to affect your health on such a high level down the road. And it's just so important to be mindful of that. And it doesn't have to be zebra, and it doesn't always have to be organic, but it is important to just be mindful of what we're taking in every single day.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I could not agree more. I didn't know that about the castor oil and the coconut oil actually performing a detox. I'm not shocked. I also find a lot of people are really skeptical of natural deodorant because they don't want to smell. And I can tell you, I have never put on Zebra and been like, "Oh, I'm smelly" a couple hours later. I find that your coverage is amazing, and I feel like it lasts all day for me at least.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is such a like a personal experience. So it really depends on, a lot of people don't want to consider that their diet might be an issue, or that, drinking alcohol might be an issue, or all of that. But, all of those things, we're putting toxins into our body and they have to escape somewhere. So they're going to build up in the lymphatic system if you're not using a natural deodorant. And if you are using a natural deodorant, they are going to come out.
Wow, I did not know that. Okay, I want to talk about something that you just spoke about, which is the antiperspirant. I feel like a lot of people know that antiperspirants maybe aren't the best, but that's kind of where it is. Is they're like, well, it's not the best, but I'll still use it. Talk to us about why it's actually dangerous and what are the true risks in using an antiperspirant?
Yeah, so an antiperspirant usually means that it has aluminum in it, which actually stops the function of sweating. And so you have your lymphatic system, and underneath your arms is super close to breast tissue. And so you want to make sure that your body can actually perform the function that God designed it to do, which is sweat. And so if you're blocking that sweat, you're actually blocking the toxins right there from coming out. And so it's crazy how much toxin buildup you can have in the lymphatic system. And ultimately, if it's not going to come out, it's going to lead to disease. And so it's super important. And a lot of people, myself included, like I said, I started wearing natural deodorant in high school. What I didn't realize is the deodorant that I was wearing, which I thought was like the safest, most natural deodorant, was the salt deodorant, which is actually made of potassium alum, which is aluminum. It's a aluminum derivative. So even though it's natural, it is still interfering with the body's natural sweating process. So a lot of people, when they switch to Zebra, are like, oh my gosh, I've used it for a few days and I smell really bad. And our customer service asks like, okay, what were you using before it? And they say a natural deodorant. And usually the deodorants just aren't natural. They think they are. So the salt stick, there's several big brands they think are natural. One of the biggest natural deodorants uses an ingredient called ozerkerite, which is petroleum-derived. And a lot of the natural deodorants use ZO maize, which is corn. It's usually from GMO corn, and that's not a good ingredient either. So there's just all these hidden ingredients. And then, if those two ingredients aren't present, which they usually are, then there's fragrance. And so fragrance can be one of 4,000 chemicals, and that's just kind of like the catch-all. So think of natural flavors in food. We know natural flavors can be anything. Fragrance is the natural flavors of the cosmetic and personal care world. So it literally can be anything in there. Chemicals, non-chemicals, that's just a really dangerous ingredient.
Yeah, my husband has been quite conditioned to know that we don't let fragrance in our house, but I'm not going to say that he doesn't think I'm a wacko. So, for people out there who maybe are like, meh, fragrance, pish posh, help them understand just why fragrances are actually so dangerous. I mean, this is one of my hard lines. I will not buy or use a product if it has fragrance in there unless I am in dire need. Like for example, I traveled 2 weeks ago, thought I was staying at one hotel, landed, had a little snafu, ended up being at another hotel, but my first hotel I had called to ask what products they use for their shampoo, conditioner, and when I looked it up, it was all fragrance free. So I didn't actually take shampoo and conditioner with me. The new hotel did not have fragrance-free stuff, and I wasn't in a place to go and get some. So for 3 days, I did have to use them. That is like a super rare thing, which also for me made me feel okay knowing that I had for years had a clean system. I trust my body that it'll be able to detox whatever I was exposed to for that short amount of time. But fragrance for me, especially in this house, especially with a new baby on the way, is just a hard line. And I think a lot of people kind of poo-poo that idea. So, what do we really need to know about fragrances in our personal care products?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I knew was bad, and I knew that like I didn't ever want like the fragranced laundry detergent or the plugins or any of that because it just made me feel physically ill. But occasionally I would have a product with fragrance in it and think that it was maybe okay. But it really wasn't until developing Zebra that I realized that that fragrance catch-all can mean so much. And so they can literally hide anything they want to in there. And a lot of fragrances are petroleum derived. And so that's just another thing at Zebra. We don't want to use petroleum derived ingredients because your body can't break down petroleum. So then ultimately, that's just another thing that's going to affect the body holistically and also can contribute to disease. And Side note, we are kind of starting into lip gloss and maybe eventually some color cosmetics, but so many of the natural brands are still using petroleum-derived ingredients and colorants in their natural glosses and lipsticks and all those things, which was really surprising to me because there's a lot of brands that I was purchasing that I thought, oh, this is clean, this is clean beauty, and it actually isn't. And so you have to know how to decode the labels to find the petroleum derived ingredients because it definitely doesn't say it's petroleum derived on the label.
Interesting. Okay, so how do you do that? If you're reading a label and you don't have the time to necessarily like Google every single ingredient, are there certain things that we're looking out for in addition to fragrance and the word petroleum if they put it in there?
No, there's not a certain word because any colorant, the Inky list starts with a CI. So that colorant can be derived from plants, it can be derived from iron oxides, it can be derived from minerals, or it can be petroleum derived. So it's a CI and then it's followed by a number. And so unless you know the number combination, which corresponds to the petroleum dyes, you could have a blush at a clean beauty that has mostly iron oxides for the tint, but it also has, petroleum derived ingredient, and it's gonna look the same on the ingredient label. So we're actually working on some education surrounding that on our social media account because this is something I think a lot of people aren't talking about. And there's an organic makeup company that I was discussing with one of my manufacturers that I said, how are they using fruits only to pigment their lip gloss? And they said they're not. They're saying they are, but they're actually using petroleum-derived colors, and they're doing it in a really kind of dishonest way. And I was like, wow, okay, well, I was a former consumer of this company, and that's really disappointing because I thought I was getting, you know, a safe lip gloss that had no petroleum ingredients in it, but that wasn't the case.
Wow, it really sucks to feel hoodwinked by a company that you trusted, right? By a company that you have invested money in and bought their products and believed their marketing, and then come to find out they've been lying to you the whole time. For me, it always makes me take a step back, and I find that it makes me distrust every company. Like from then on, I'm kind of like, well, is this company lying to me? Is this company using petroleum-based stuff? Is this company whitewashing their marketing?
Right. And sometimes it's not like an overt lie. Sometimes it's just like what they're not saying, right? So sometimes it's like vegan, all natural, all these things, and then they have petroleum in it. Well, they're not lying. They are vegan, and I guess petroleum is a natural ingredient, it comes from the earth. So, like, they're not lying, but also, most consumers don't want petro-based ingredients. So, it's those type of things that we just try to unravel at Zebra and just figure out, like, okay, me as a consumer, what do I want? Like, I want the cleanest possible ingredients. I want the best source ingredients. I want clean options for packaging. I want, formulas that actually work. And so we try to think of everything and truly say as much as we could to make sure that people didn't have to wonder. Like we wanted to create a space where it was like, okay, like they've covered all the bases.
Yeah, I can feel that in your marketing, and I can feel it in your website, and I can feel it in your Instagram and your social media presence. And I feel it when I use your products. Like I can feel the difference between your products and other quote unquote clean brands that I've used in the past, that there is truly a difference. And, when I said I trusted you guys and I really believed in your product, I mean that. And I'm a very slow to trust person. There's a joke in our house that I say that the only person on earth that I trust fully is my husband. I'm like everybody else, I don't trust fully. Like even my very best friends, I'm always like, I don't know. I love you so much. But the only person I really trust fully on this earth is my husband. And so to be such a slow to trust person, I will say that you guys have done it. You've done the work to gain that trust, and so far you've never done anything to lose my trust, and I think that says a lot because so many companies out there just I don't know that they value the honesty and transparency like Zebra does.
Yeah, I think it comes from the fact that we're definitely not here to honor anyone else but God. And so we try to just honor him in every decision. And we've been tested many times throughout the kind of launch process and even post-launch. We had scheduled to launch a mouthwash with our original core product lineup, and I had placed a purchase order for thousands of mouthwash, which was very expensive. And we do a lot of testing at Zebra. We do probably testing to our own detriment, like to the fact where my husband, after 2 years of like building this company, was like, "Are you ever going to launch, or are you just going to test?" Like he's like,
Come
"It's
on, Jen.
getting a little weird. You're just ordering more tests, and it's like so expensive." And I'm just like, "Yeah, but like I'm not putting it out there until it's perfect." And so we actually found a microorganism in this mouthwash that we were ready to launch. And so I was like, oh my goodness, like what's going on? Do we need to reformulate? And upon investigation, I started to realize that the formulator that I was using wasn't as trustworthy and wasn't giving me the answers that I was looking for. And so I said to my husband at the time, we were a small team, there's just a few of us. I was like, listen, like, I don't think this manufacturer is safe and I've already paid for it. I want to cancel this purchase order and I'm not going to get any money back. And he was like, yeah, like that's an easy decision. He's like, your integrity and the transparency of this company and what you're building this company for, like, cancel it. Let's move on. And so we did. And a few months later, one of the biggest brands of toothpaste in America, which was also being manufactured at that lab, came back and had this same microorganism in their toothpaste. And there was currently, I don't know if it's still pending, but there was a lawsuit pending for it like 6 months ago for the same microorganism. And so I just felt like very good that I did not proceed. And we'll do whatever it takes to protect our customer and their health. And so we do all sorts of behind the scenes testing. Our toothpaste is Prop 65 compliant. That's a big concern in the natural toothpaste world is, levels of heavy metals. And with any natural product or natural vegetable or fruit that's grown in the ground, there is going to be some level of heavy metals that comes from the soil. And so that's to be expected when you're using an actually natural toothpaste versus a synthetic toothpaste. But of course, we want to make sure that we can provide the purest and best and the lowest levels of heavy metals. So we've always been very concerned with that. And from the very beginning, we've been Prop 65 compliant. And like our child size serving for the coconut is actually 6 times lower than Prop 65. And I think our adult serving size is like 4 times lower than Prop 65. And it varies batch to batch, but we've always consistently been 0.001 parts per million for the heavy metals.
That's amazing. Okay, now are there apps or like certifications, third party testing, like maybe EWG or Made Safe that we consumers can use? Or does it truly come down to standing in the aisle, Googling each ingredient, and then picking kind of the best one? Is there anything we can rely on to help us make this decision?
Hard because, there's so much information out there that's being thrown at us, like, right, from influencers to studies to apps. And for me personally, I've never found one reliable source that I can truly go to and say, like, okay, this is definitively the source. And so when I was building Zebra, I was taking in all of the information and, doing my own research and then just using discernment. And I think discernment is so underrated in this world. We just want the answer. We want someone to go to that can tell us. We see all the time on social media, just explain it to me like I'm 5. I don't want to do I don't want to do the research. Just explain it to me. And that just, well, why are we going to take someone else's opinion over forming our own? And so I got to the point where I realized, like, there's not an influencer I can fully trust. There's not, and not to say that they aren't trustworthy. It's just that we're all human beings and we have to take in information and we have to make decisions for our own family. And so, if you're fully trusting a governmental regulatory body, or you're fully trusting an influencer, or you're fully trusting an app, you're missing the mark. Your family and your body is your responsibility. And so at Zebra, we fully promote the idea of just autonomy and sovereignty in making your health decisions. And we don't fully trust any system. And so it was because I didn't fully trust any system that while we were formulating Zebra, I actually pulled hydroxyapatite out of the formula. So I went ingredient by ingredient, and instead of just trusting that these ingredients were safe, even something as benign as glycerin or coconut oil, I said to myself, why does this have to be in the formula? What can I prove that's bad about these ingredients before I put it in my formula? So I just did it a completely different way. And I was in love with hydroxyapatite. I was using it. I thought, oh my gosh, this is like the answer to remineralizing the teeth. Like, I've always hated fluoride. And after doing the research and just kind of looking at what was happening on social media, people mentioning these side effects that they were having, I was putting it all together and then continuing to do research and looking at animal studies. And I said, this is actually one of the most nefarious ingredients that's ever been introduced into our system. And I believe it's even more dangerous to the body than fluoride. So people like to debate on social media about whether it's helping their teeth. I don't think it can really help the teeth. I think the nano can kind of remineralize. The micro, the molecule is too big, so it just lays on top of the teeth. It doesn't really do anything. But if we get past the point where it's remineralizing the teeth, let's say it does, what it does to the body holistically is really frightening.
Which is what? Is it a neurotoxin?
Yeah, I mean, it can calcify in the lungs, it can calcify in the tissues, it can cause oxidative stress. A lot of people are seeing hydroxyapatite calcifications show up in breast tumors. There's been a huge uptick in kidney stones, where people are seeing hydroxyapatite in kidney stones. And so it's just been really interesting. And so a lot of people say, like, oh, you just have comments from people to say this actually happened. But yeah, like, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of people saying they have gray spotting on their teeth. Alex Clark from Culture Apothecary actually reached out to Zebra after she was using hydroxyapatite. She saw that we were speaking out against it, and she was having gray spotting on her teeth. And so I really can't explain why the gray spotting happens with the nano hydroxyapatite, but it is definitely something that we have seen over and over again. We have photo documentation, we have testimonials where people get these spots and the translucence in their teeth, and then usually within weeks of switching to Zebra, it goes away. We've also seen so many people reporting just a giant uptick in cavities after using hydroxyapatite, and then they get them addressed, they start using Zebra and clean dental checkups. And so, okay, there's never been a scientific study to prove that hydroxyapatite is doing all these things, but we have to keep in mind scientific studies are usually funded by an ingredient maker or someone that wants the study. So 97% of scientists agree with whoever's funding the study. And so the nano hydroxyapatite toothpaste makers love to wave around their study that says, oh, our cone-shaped nano doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. But their study was funded by the maker of the cone-shaped hydroxyapatite. So their study was literally funded by the ingredient maker. And it's like, how can you trust that? And is it worth it? Is it worth possibly having a nanoparticle that can cross your blood-brain barrier and you're going to base that decision on a study that was funded by the ingredient maker? Okay.
Amen. I
I
mean,
think
that's yeah, that's the whole basis of all studies, right? Is to go back to who funded this study and why. Why did they want to look into this? Why did they want the methodology to be that? Why did they choose that particular population? Or, why was that their hypothesis? I think that so many people go to studies, they read the title, and they read the conclusion and they never dig deeper. And when you do dig deeper, you find it is really hard to find not only high quality studies out there, but it's nearly impossible to find one that wasn't funded by a biased source, someone who stands to benefit from the findings.
Absolutely. So we take into consideration the studies, but we also don't just study the ingredient, like we study the oral care system as a whole, and we look at how God designed our salivary system to work. And then, we form opinions based on all of this information, not just a study funded by an ingredient maker. And so, these dentists are I think will send people to the zebra page to argue with me. And sometimes, they, the hydroxyapatite is the golden calf of the holistic community. And so I think it's funny because they try to discredit me and say, oh, well, you don't like hydroxyapatite because you don't have it in your toothpaste. No, I actually loved hydroxyapatite. It actually would have been a lot easier for me if I would have jumped on the hydroxyapatite train because it's so popular. And so, because I'm one of the only ones speaking out about this ingredient, they like to disqualify me, I guess. Like being a mother that was hurt by the system is less credible than a dentist that, has been influenced by.
Indoctrinated.
Oh, and so I just kind of laugh at that. Like, you have no idea. I left a career that I absolutely loved and was doing very well at to jump into the fire and argue with you about what is safe and an ingredient that I do believe is super harmful. And I truly think in a few years, when people continue to start see the cavities and the things it's actually doing to their teeth and possibly the side effects to the body, I think that will be a sad day. I mean, look how long it took for people to realize how bad fluoride was. And
Yeah.
gosh, I hope it doesn't take that long for hydroxyapatite, but I think it does so many of the same things. And I just want people to understand how dangerous it is. And again, if they don't want to use zebra, that's fine, but I'm going to tell them that hydroxyapatite is not what they think it is.
So, other than hydroxyapatite, what else should we be concerned about in traditional toothpaste? One of the things I learned about when I got pregnant was SLS. I had never heard of it before. I go to a holistic dentist, and so my dentist was like, be careful of SLS. Make sure you are swapping your products. I was early in the first trimester when I went, and so they were like, do it now. Like we want you to have a clean toothpaste, and they had a list of clean toothpaste to use. So what else do we need to know about traditional toothpaste that may be harming our health?
Yeah, it's full of foaming agents and artificial flavors, artificial colors, sometimes the fluoride. So traditional toothpaste is something that you're using every day. And that's why we started with the toothpaste and the deodorant, because like it really can affect the bioaccumulation of toxins in the body. So we actually had a customer just leave us a comment on our Facebook page saying, hey, like I've had canker sores almost my entire life, and I just switched to zebra toothpaste. I never realized that it was my toothpaste. And so like their canker sores went away, and they said, but we just wanted to make sure it was zebra. So we went back to our old toothpaste, and sure enough, the canker sores came right back. And so we switched right back to zebra. And I'm like, I was like, wow, like that's incredible. But that just goes to show like how chemically laden traditional toothpaste is. And I think it's interesting. I'm glad your holistic dentist is aware of that. But even those natural toothpaste sometimes contain the hydroxyapatite or still contain things that can be somewhat harmful. I had a discussion with a dentist a few months ago and told her about some ingredients in toothpaste, and she said, you know what? Oh, this is not really our job to know about the ingredients in toothpaste because it's not. They just trust the toothpaste person who walks in the door and is telling them it's a safe, a safe toothpaste. They're victims of marketing just like we are. And so, unless they're sitting down like I was and going line by line to see if these ingredients are safe, they're also victims of this marketing. And the toothpaste people are similar in the dental world to big pharma in the doctor world. And so they are literally being marketed to just as well and falling for especially the hydroxyapatite in the holistic dental world. Most of them are still on that train and don't realize the effects that it has on the rest of the body outside the mouth.
Wow, big pharma and big dental. I had
Yes,
no idea.
it's a thing. Didn't realize
Oh.
it was a thing until I was, in the toothpaste business, which again, I've never like woke up and dreamed to be oral care enthusiast. I just was a mom that wanted better products for my family, but it's kind of wild when you deconstruct the whole system.
And I love the era that we're in, that so many businesses are being driven by moms that just simply want better. So many products are being created by moms who just want better. We're not asking for a lot. We're not asking for too much. We're not being extra. We're simply just saying, hey, could I be able to clean my children's teeth and keep them, healthy without harming them, without having to look for hours and hours for a company that isn't going to try and lie to me or, have sly marketing to get me to purchase a product that is dishonest and isn't transparent.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've just had enough. We're all the fed up mom.
Yeah.
Better for our children, and we don't want to spend, 3 hours deconstructing a label. We just want to put it in our carts and move on with life. Like it shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah, I feel super lucky to be able to come in people like you's footsteps, knowing that you've already done this before me. You've done the hard work and you have kind of beaten down those gates, and now I get to reap the benefits of that. I get to learn from you. I get to use the products that you've created, and I feel really lucky to be in this community welcoming my first baby. And I don't necessarily have to walk that line of fire because it's already been done by really strong and courageous and determined women before me. So thank you. Thanks for doing the work that you do. Thanks for making these products. Thanks for being brave and like standing up against big pharma and big dental and the big organizations that I think they want us to believe that they have our best interests at heart, but they really, really don't.
They don't. And I think once you've gone through what my family has and you sit in that hospital room and you realize that, it's kind of you against the system, you have a completely different perspective. And Zebra's whole mission is to help people to improve their health so they don't have that same experience that we did.
Oh my gosh. Well, Jen, thank you so much for being here. This has been incredibly enlightening. I love your company. I love your transparency. I love how you fight for people to be able to choose and make choice and be autonomous in being able to find clean ingredients. That's something that I and our community hold to a really high regard. And I'm just really grateful to be able to share this space with you and grateful that you came on the show. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think people need to know when it comes to clean ingredients in toothpaste or deodorant or skincare or just overall personal wellness?
I think the only thing we didn't cover is the dental floss, which is a whole nother rabbit hole. But
Oh,
most dental floss is being sold in America is made in China. Um, and most of it is made out of polyester, which is essentially plastic. So you're flossing with microplastics every day, which until a few years ago, I didn't realize how dangerous that was. But now we know the bioaccumulation of microplastics in our body and our brain is becoming a huge problem. Um, so I, for a long time, had been using what I believe to be a clean floss. It's the #1 clean coconut oil floss in the country, luxury brand. And that is made of recycled water bottles. And so,
Gosh.
that was another example of, okay, they're marketing this as clean, they're marketing this as natural, but what is not being said? What's not being said? I mean, I guess it is being said in their marketing because they do say it's made of recycled water bottles, but would we want to be flossing with recycled water bottles? It sounds good. It sounds good for the planet, but it's not good for our body. And then there's a lot of expanding and scrubby flosses out there, which are also made of plastics. And they have little plastic arms on them, which are supposed to they're called scrubbies or expanding floss. So that's supposed to get between the teeth and get all the accumulated food and plaque out of there. But again, it's plastic. So Zebra just tried to go the most natural route, which is silk. And then we use beeswax from France and essential oil, peppermint, and then xylitol, which is deposited between your teeth and helps get the bacteria, just, helps with the bioaccumulation of the bacteria and all of that. So we think our floss is really just the cleanest floss available. And a lot of floss has PFAS in it, which
Oh
also,
no.
the nonstick coating on the pans, that's not good, but a lot of people don't realize that's in their floss. So we are PFAS tested, non-detect. We're made in Italy. And again, we just tried to provide the most natural plastic-free filament that we could, because you're putting that into your bloodstream every day via your gum line. So it's kind of important.
Yeah, that seems super important. I gotta be honest, I don't floss as much as I probably should. I definitely am not flossing every day. But when I do floss, I don't want microplastics, especially being pregnant. Listeners, if you didn't know, some of the most concerning research that we have coming out is that our placentas are collecting a lot of microplastics. And when we are looking into placentas after babies are being born, we're finding microplastics that have accumulated in the placenta, in cord blood. We are finding really concerning findings that certainly warrant looking into further. So, yeah, Jen, I didn't know any of that. I've definitely got to get my hands on some of you guys' floss, and maybe that'll be my motivator to floss every day like I really should.
I know it's hard to get behind, but we have been told that our floss is life-changing. Like, we have some really, really loyal customers that think it is just the best floss ever. But yeah, the microplastics and the PFAS, I mean, the PFAS in people's bloodstream, they call that the forever chemical because it never leaves the body. And so that, for babies, for a long time, they were testing the placenta, in the cord blood, and finding PFAS in, brand new babies. And so it's in all of the blood of the human population, and that's not something that can ever be detoxed out. That's why they call it the forever chemical. So it's in so much, from fabrics to plastics to all of these things. If you can find a product that says, we're PFAS tested, even if it's not Zebra, just be mindful of that, because that's important.
Yeah, that's super scary. It also it feels so daunting to have to read every single label of every single thing, but it's important, right? It's one of the things that I feel like if you're not doing it, then nobody is going to do it for you. So if you truly do want to prioritize this and you are concerned about our future health and you want to start kind of living a healthier life, a cleaner lifestyle, reading ingredient labels and labels on your clothing and asking about sourcing. You guys, I don't know if you realize this, and I only say that because I didn't. It seems simple once I say it. You're gonna be like, well, duh. But you can email literally any company and ask them where they source stuff from. I never thought about that until the last couple years. Not that you always get an answer back, but your transparent and honest companies are going to email you back and they're going to say, this is where we source from. And that should give you some comfort, right? Or it will confirm maybe this isn't the brand for me.
Yeah, absolutely. That
So
is
Jen,
important.
I have my last question, which is about your sourcing. And it's you just said that you source things from France. I'm a big support America First girl. So if I can buy at home, then I will buy at home. So why are you outsourcing to other companies? Is it or other countries? Is it because they have higher standards than the US and you're able to find more pure ingredients there?
Sometimes. So we prioritize America first. That's kind of something that we do as a brand on multiple levels, but we are an America first company. But some ingredients you just can't get in America. Would make our floss in America if we found a place that can make it to our standards. And so it's always America first. And if America can't do it, then we seek to find the best sourcing somewhere else. Coconut oil is another one. Most coconut oil is sourced from China or India. Since we don't do China, we source ours from India. We looked at sourcing organic coconut oil from India and then found out that a lot of the certifications there are literally just a piece of paper. And same thing with China. So we would rather source a peppermint oil or an organic oil from a trusted supplier who's using the regenerative farming methods or, using good farming methods than source from China where they're calling it organic and it literally is just a piece of paper. So we take all of that into account. And so we prioritize organic, but when it makes sense, when it's actually organic. And then our next level is non-GMO, and we're always looking at like how are they farming this and what are they using and all of the things. So it's a very complex kind of sourcing matrix that we use. And so, again, America first, and then we're looking at other countries and how they do things and trying to get as close to the source as we possibly can.
I love that so much. I am the daughter of a farmer born and raised in Mississippi. And so you have just lit me up on so many levels. I also married an Italian. So I love to know that if America can't do it, then Italy can. I just feel so jazzed. This was such a great conversation. And I hope that it helped people really understand kind of the nuance in this conversation and maybe actually some of the hidden dark dangers that hide in our personal care products. Jen, if people wanted to get their hands on your products or follow you online or learn more from you or about Zebra, where can they do that?
Yes, so we post a lot of educational content on Instagram, and we are on Insta at zebra.usa. And then our website is yayzebra.com, yayzebra.com. And we also have a mailing list where we email out promotions and education and all sorts of things. So we would love to connect with any of your followers because joining like-minded people into the herd is our favorite thing to do. And even if they don't become Zebra customers, like I said, it's super important to us to empower people to be sovereign over their own health and just to have that education and knowledge to help make healthier decisions for themselves and their families.
Oh my gosh, you are speaking my language. I know a lot of you are used to me saying these type of things about your health care and the hospital system and preparing for your labor, but it doesn't stop there, you guys. It goes way beyond that. This is about the decisions that you make about your body and for your children and the health of your family, including your skincare and your wellness care products. And Y'all, I drank the Kool-Aid. I am deep in that herd now. I am totally a zebra girl. I'm gonna go and order some floss. I have a stockpile of deodorant. I love it so much. We will put all the links in the show notes for you guys. And Jen, genuinely, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. And listeners, I will see you in the next episode. Be sure to follow Zebra on social media, and you can find me at Tranquility by HeHe and at the.birth.lounge. Until next time, head to your app store and download the Birth Lounge app for evidence-based childbirth education and data-driven postpartum support delivered straight to your phone. Bye! Thank you so much for tuning in today. I love hanging out with you, and it is an honor to be your go-to gal when it comes to preparing for your baby. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a 5-star review and tell others why they should be listening to the Birth Lounge podcast too. You deserve to have a birth that you love with a provider that values your autonomy and respects informed consent without all the trauma that you so commonly hear about on social media. New episodes air every Wednesday and Friday. Hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. I'm HeHe, and this is the Birth Lounge Podcast.